All right, all right. Let's get Facebook in here. We can start the show and hang out and have a good time. All righty. All right. Welcome in. Welcome in. It is 6:42 my time, 7:42 where a lot of you are listening, but who knows? It's Broncos early show, right? Broncos for breakfast. You people all across the globe here join us today, and welcome to Legal Tampering. With what market that's left, I don't know. But good morning, Eric. How are you doing? Hopefully, you're feeling a little bit better than me, dealing with hand, foot, and mouth disease from daycare. Gosh darn it! I'm feeling better, but I'm still not there. But good morning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing well. I'm not sick. I got this guy done the other day, and then I got this guy done yesterday. So I've been busy away building up, some big Lego sets. I have a third one sitting behind me that I got to do, but that's got to be put on the back burner now that free agency is basically here. Legal tampering starts today, and it's already been a hectic few days. A lot of resigning going on, few trades, and a market for linebackers that exploded beyond, I think, what anybody believed it would be. So it's going to be an interesting few more days, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, the Broncos especially, I think, are maybe taken a little bit back based on all the insiders, talking points to the combine and leading up to free agency this week. The linebacker, Denver, their number one need that they're going to sign. Draft's going to be tight end, running back, free agency, linebacker. Well, guess what? Poof, goes the linebacker market, or bang and then poof. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But before we get into that, appreciate everyone with the thumbs up coming up in here on the way. Greg Smith, good to see you. Greg Smith, if you're joining us on Facebook today. I see David Youngkins in the house. Great to see you. Will Israel, he's out there in Oklahoma. Good to see you. Leon S. Talking about the Myles Garrett contract. Yeah, crazy with Myles Garrett. Josh Allen yesterday as well. Some fun stuff. We got Michael Evans in the house. Chase Wellner, great to see you. Jason Bonney says good morning. We also got Conga says, who can blame someone for getting paid, especially in this day of exploitation? No blame for the players, right? It's billionaires paying millionaires. So I'm going to be on the side of the millionaires in that one. You won't see me crying for these owners at any time. Jeremy Sean, morning, fellas. I think they wanted DJ back a little cheaper, but the inside linebacker market exploded. So they did what they had to do. This is my read on it as well, Eric. I'm sure you have a little bit even more insider take on this, but the Broncos had money earmarked for a linebacker. Whether it be Zach Bond, Nick Bolton, which we kind of had back and forth on privately, Sherwood as well. And then, even have Ernest Jones re-signed yesterday, more than that. So linebacker market went crazy. Teams, I think it's with how many teams are playing light boxes, nickel defense, two high shells. Your value for having a stable linebacking core is really high. The Broncos were the exception, not the rule last season of having, let's just call it what it is, a bad linebacker room and still having good defense. But a lot of teams can't get away with that. Denver could because of Patrick Surtain changes the math on what you can do. So yeah, the linebacker room exploded, and the money they had earmarked to use for linebacker, well, guess what? 10 million we wanted for DJ Jones, we can give you an extra 3 million per, because now we're not paying the linebackers that we thought we were going to have a chance to pay.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's just not a thought process I necessarily agree with. And part of that reason is, and this is absolutely no fault of DJ Jones. I mean, hey, they offered you the contract, take it and run with it. As you said, billionaires paying millionaires. No hate on the player for taking the deal. But when you have part of what you have to do when you're building up a roster is you have to have positional budgeting. And this goes for, it's not just nose tackle, it's the whole defensive line. It's not just, your middle linebacker, it's all your linebackers, both your safety, like all your safeties, all that. So now you have DJ Jones for at least 2 years. This is a 3-year, $39 million contract, $26 million guaranteed. He is in Denver for 2 years. And you have Zach Allen's extension coming up. That now I don't want to say that puts that at risk. They've probably had that factored into this. But now you may be saying, who I think is a more valuable piece, you may now be saying goodbye to John Franklin Myers because of positional budgeting here. On top of that, you're going out and you're paying above market value for DJ Jones and we know it's above market value. We've seen another defensive line contract. A couple of them get handed out that were more in line with what you would expect DJ Jones to get had he hit the open market, which is about $8 million. About $8 million per year, 8-9 million. So that you paid above that, and a strong class for nose tackle types in both free agency and the draft. Now, I get linebacker market exploded. I get that there are not many options left at linebacker, and the options may not be ideal. I mean, Dre Greenlaw is still available. Great player when healthy, but he's played 34 snaps since he tore his Achilles tendon in the Super Bowl last year. It's been 13 months. So that's a bit rough. That's a risk there. How much do you want to pay for that? How long do you want to pay for that? That's so much risk there. Robert Spillane, he's another Alex Singleton, who doesn't really work with what the Broncos have supposedly been wanting to look for, which has been coverage. But the coverage guys got paid, and that's where the market exploded. It makes sense for them to have pivoted to a position that may not be as strong in free agency, as strong in the draft, like safety. And who knows? Maybe they will. Maybe they took, say they had like 13 million allotted, 14 million allotted for linebackers. Well, 3 million, 4 million goes to DJ Jones, and then the rest of that's going to get added to their safety budget. So instead of looking at 8 million for a safety, now they can be looking at 15, 16 million for a safety. It changes the math like that. I'm not a fan of the DJ Jones signing, just to make that clear. He played 40.26% of this defensive snaps last year. 13 million for that on an average per year basis is way too much. But there are things still as we get into free agency. How does the defensive line market go? Maybe it does explode like linebacker did. What do they do at safety? What do they do at tight end? What do they do at running back? Because they wanted Aaron Jones. I don't think that was a terribly kept secret whatsoever. They wanted Aaron Jones. Sean Payton wants a veteran running back there. He wanted Jacobs last year. He wanted Aaron Jones this year. What do they do there? So there are things that can make me come around somewhat on the DJ Jones contract.
Yeah, and I think the DJ Jones contract isn't an egregious overpay. When you look at what did he get last time? 3 years, 10 million.
Yes.
Year 2 of his contract was a down, but year 3, I thought he earned his value, and it's just I think it's the 3-year, 10 million again with just the simple inflation of the cap over the 3 years since he signed it. Now he is 3 years older. But I don't think it's going to limit them very much by any means. And it also kind of offsets the need. Like right now, when I first saw the contract, then the years weren't coming out. I'm like, is it a 1-year deal? Are they really going to go into this offseason with their 4 top guys set to hit free agency the same year? That's asinine. But it's a 3-year deal, essentially a 2-year deal with that 3rd year being a team option. So we'll see what happens here with that. He was I know that some of the advanced analytics had him as one of the best run defenders in the NFL this season. Now, granted, with a caveat that it was Denver plays in a very blitz-centric scheme, so he's not taking on as many double teams with only 4-man rushers. Like, it's a much easier to be a run stopper if you have 5 guys rushing instead of 4, and you're only accounting for 1 gap instead of having to play across gap and a half or 2 gap. And it's hard to really account for that with your run stop win rate and everything baked into a formula. I don't know how you weight that per scheme, per play. But either way, I don't think it's a terrible move for the Broncos. Is it one that I would have made? I probably would have looked for a little bit more of a budget value out there. You mentioned, Poona Ford was out there. You had Tart out there. Somebody like the 24-year-old who I really like in Bobby Brown. I'm curious to see what contract he gets just because it's a different perspective, longevity-wise, upside-wise, and let's just call it what it is, size-wise. Because even when you have DJ Jones back, good run player last year, you're kind of stuck with the same limitations that you have on the inside going into this season right now. Because, not a well-kept secret. The Broncos had a lot of interest in Tavondre Sweat last season. They wanted like that 340-pound, 330-pound 0-1 technique that can at least change what you can do up front schematically with those body types. Now you're kind of short, stubby, smaller, undersized nose tackles, which, again, good run defenders in a blitz-oriented scheme, but you still are lacking that variety up front on the interior of the interior. Jason coming in here says, re-signing DJ does not mean they won't target Walter Nolan type as opposed to Kenneth Grant type in the draft. And that's something I think also, you mentioned it shifts maybe the Broncos going from a 0-1 technique to maybe a 3-4-5 technique. I think both are still on the table because my point previously about the 330-pound 2-0 technique, 2-gapping type. They still don't have that on the roster. And my understanding is that's something they are interested in. But I do think it raises the probability of a understudy replacing Jackson on the back end for a Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers interior body type.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things of, as I said, is there was some speculation that they Broncos may have wanted to extend both those guys, John Franklin Myers and Zach Allen, and now because of positional budgeting, you may not be able to. So Walter Nolan now makes a little bit more sense as a guy who can grow for that type, I should say, makes more sense as a guy who can grow for a year and then replace one of the two, because I still think one of them gets extended, likely Zach Allen. So yeah, I do think that Walter Nolan type still makes sense, but I do think that they still are wanting that big 2-gapping guy because, as you mentioned, last year they had a lot of interest in Devondre Sweat. Well, guess what? They still had DJ Jones, granted he was entering the final year of his deal, and they had Malcolm Roach for 2 years at that point. Well, Malcolm Roach is entering the final year of his deal, and they have DJ Jones for 2 years at this point, guaranteed. So it's one of those things where it still makes sense for them to go get that big 2-gapping 330 plus pound nose tackle, and there are plenty of options in the draft. And another thing that you brought up that I want to touch on is you talked about inflation in the contract. For me, this contract is the same that they got, kind of as what you were saying, just adjusted for inflation. It's that 3-year, $30 million. Well, now it's 3 years, $39 million. I don't think he lived up to that contract, the 3-year, $30 million. As good as he was last year, I think that there's a little bit of overestimating how good he was. He was more of a not quite middle of the pack run defender, but right above it. Not one of those great run defenders, and just a little bit above that. And so and for me, when you're looking at paying that third contract out, it's more of a what have you done instead of what will you do, especially when you're 30 years old. It's what have you done? That's what you're paying for. Still a little bit of what you can still bring us. I think he's going to give us similar to what he got last year, and I'm just not sure that is good enough to quantify, $13 million on average per year basis. And then you mentioned Puna Ford, you mentioned Tier Tart, you mentioned Bobby Brown, all these guys who are free agents. Now, if they go out there and they get similar deals, that's going to really help me come around on DJ Jones, because Puna Ford, especially, I mean, we can talk about DJ Jones as a run defender. He didn't show up as a pass rusher. There's a few plays, don't get me wrong, but guys who did, Puna Ford, Tier Tart, Bobby Brown, they had more effectiveness as a pass rusher. So what they get is really going to play a lot into how I view this DJ Jones contract.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It felt like a little bit more of a glut of those 0-1 technique plugs, especially ones that don't have as much pass rush juice or 2-gap to 1-gap versatility. But with that said, I'm happy to have DJ Jones back all the same for the stability. Also, it seems like he's very well liked in the locker room. Everybody was celebrating him being back in Denver. Saw Zach Allen tweet out about it. So excited about that. And I like the trend from George Payton and the staff, now that we have this ownership and the stability with the purse supported, of course, that you are rewarding and paying your in-house guys. And with the way the market's going, again, with Garrett Bowles and DJ Jones, if you wanted to bring these guys back, it might have been better to do it even earlier than they did. But again, we weren't sure what the market was going to be. By all indications, whether it be Mike Kliss, Zach Stevens yesterday tweeting out like, oh, Denver was sitting here waiting, a lot of good linebackers available. Then I tweet out on it, 5 hours later, because 5 hours after that, the market's wiped essentially. But we'll see what happens. A lot of underdog options available, though. But first, before we get to our ad read today, Michael Runke with the Stars saying, good morning, Nick and Eric on Broncos for breakfast. Go, Bo Broncos. Go, Michael. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're feeling well. Appreciate you coming in. And never an underdog in our eyes.
Speaking of underdogs, this basketball season, when your favorite star scores a bucket, we're going to give you an alley-oop opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? You can with Underdog.
To play, choose whether a player go higher or lower on one of their stats, such as points, assists, rebounds, and more. Underdog's got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all the basketball picks and mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into 1,000 with just your hoops knowledge.
So download the Underdog app and sign up now using promo code MHuddle to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code MHuddle. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon your first deposit.
Must be 18 plus, 90 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, and 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncbgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. So moving on here, I did see our guy Chad Hawkins in here. Good to see you. He says, Nick, talk about your thoughts on the offense in the draft now that we have Jones back. Denver, I think I've made no mistake about it. I've been defensive line or offensive weapon with the pick at 20 overall. I'm much more open to wide receiver than it appears the Broncos are at that option right now. Like, I would be over the moon if the Broncos took Emeka Egbuka at 20. I think that he is vastly, I know he had the injury season 2 years ago, but I mean, his freshman season, he outperformed Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, statistically. This year he played behind Donovan Smith, and Will Howard kind of had some struggles early on, but he was still really productive. He just does everything well. He's going to test well. He's got a good frame. I would be over the moon with Emeka Egbuka, especially with what the wide receiver market's doing right now. But right now, it seems like Denver would love Genty, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland. It's a good chance all those guys are gone by pick 14. So then what? We'll see what happens. I'm very holistic and open to almost any and all options with 20 right now for the Broncos. Unfortunately, it feels a little bit more, the linebacker spot feels a little bit more dire, but at the same time, you got by with it last season with arguably one of the worst linebacking positional groups in football with Barton and Stranad getting so many snaps. So it worked to a point last season, but as far as offense goes, I'd be down for a weapon at 20. It's just, will the board fall away where Denver's interested in the actual weapons that fall?
Yeah, the last thing I want is a reach for a weapon. And that is something that Sean Payton has done before, not necessarily reach specifically for a weapon, but using that first round pick to reach a little bit. Yeah, that's something that's fairly common in it. And Emeka Egbuka, as you said, I'd love that pick. I've hyped him up on, the Valley Deep Divers before. He's one of my favorite guys in this class at wide receiver, and he fits so well with what they seem to be looking for. Because it's not that they're all the way out on wide receiver. I mean, Mike Kless is coming out and talking about how they want to add a veteran wide receiver to it. It's just that they may not want to go spend big at wide receiver. That seems to be the consensus there. Not somebody that's going to, demand a lot of money, especially with them having to pay Courtland Sutton if they're able to get that contract done. So there's a lot on it. And as you said, it just depends on how the board falls. I think that they're more likely to have a defensive guy in play at 20 with how things are looking at the moment. But as we know, if we've learned anything from the past few days, it's how quickly things change in the NFL. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember yesterday, I was sitting there, we saw the Nick Bolton contract come down, and I immediately started talking about Jamie Sherwood probably going to re-sign with the Jets. And about 5 minutes later, it was announced that he re-signed with the Jets. So things change quickly in the NFL. Stands for not for long. That applies to, information, thoughts, opinions, all that stuff changes. So we'll see how things stand about a month from now, when you typically can get a better read on where teams are headed in the draft.
Yeah, and let's be honest, Denver is much more of a tightly run ship these days compared to the Elway regime, where you see Elway after hours talking to him, and he'll tell you what's going on. And the players are liking the draft and everything. Where this one, there's misinformation campaigns, there's mind games going on. Both Paytons. So it depends on who you talk, and if they're lying to you on purpose, or if you're getting misinformation because there was misinformation above them. So it's interesting to follow, and things change. We got Dave Glassman coming in here. Yeah, Conga says, hand, foot, and mouth. Haven't heard that too often. Well, in daycare, it happens every year, and typically adults can get it but not show signs of infection. I won't show you the bottom of my feet, but I won't show you the inside of my mouth either, but we're getting over it. It's not fun. I thought maybe I had COVID because my throat hurt so bad, but we're doing well. We're just praying that my wife doesn't get it. She's fine so far. Greg Smith, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Todd says hand, foot, and mouth happens because kids have no sense. They also put everything in their mouth in their drool machine. So it's it's going to happen in the daycare setting, but we appreciate you. We got Micah coming in, says The Athletic were saying DJ Jones was expecting over $20 million annually on the market. I think it's not a crazy deal in the end. I just think with where Denver is at and the saturation of the market, I would agree with their original plan. It's just everything changed once the linebacker market exploded. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm thinking. Thank you, Jeremy or Jason with the $10 Super RC in here. Ernie Mays, hello, Nick and Eric. Go Broncos country only. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate the heck out of you coming in here. Got our guy Quentin Caldwell. Good morning, everyone. James E. Doc JC says orange and blue coffee time. Thanks, fellas. Eric, one of these days we're going to get you drinking coffee. We'll appreciate that. I think you can do it. I think you can grow up. You can be a real man one day with the coffee.
I don't think you want me throwing up on camera. That's my issue with coffee. It makes me throw up.
We're going to find you something that you like. We'll get there. We'll also get you on a backpacking trip one day. Troy Boer. Troy, one of the great ones. I really do appreciate Troy coming in here. Just a big heart, good guy, and always coming in with the support as well. And, has dogs in his profile picture, so that's a win for me. He says, hey, guys, how can we fill every hole to some extent so we don't draft in need desperately? I think, honestly, this is going to be kind of a hot take there, but you're already kind of baseline where you were last season, right? So was everything so terrible last season that you can't even function with the units that you have on the field? I mean, they functioned enough to get you to the playoffs, right? I think that there is a functional level there. So while you do want to improve upon your tight end room, your running back room, linebacker, blah, 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 Denver already had like one of the lowest number of players hitting free agency this season, and you have draft picks coming in. You're still going to have the ability to fill in with some filler, some spackling vet min contracts that can raise the floor of the room, bring competition. So I would argue you're already there, even though I know some people in here will kick and scream potentially about that, punch a hole in the wall, whatever, talk about spackling there. But you were functional enough last season at all those spots to make the playoffs. It's not an improvement, but you also, I would argue you're already not going into the draft desperate. You need to add talent, big picture. That's what the draft is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to put it is that right now they're at net neutral. They haven't lost anything. I mean, granted, free agency hasn't happened for them to lose anything, but it's not like they had a overabundance of impending free agents that were going to hurt this team. DJ Jones was probably the most impactful free agent that they had, and they brought him. My feelings on the contract aside, they're at net neutral. So I think that they'll go in and sign to fill the holes that are left. I have no doubt they'll add a tight end, whether how much they spend there, what tier, what level, what talent level, running back, linebacker, safety. I fully expect them to address those in free agency. Maybe even add another defensive lineman, but more of that 4-5 technique type. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they did that. I wouldn't be surprised if they added yet another offensive lineman either, or two, depending on different positions. But not all these are going to be big, expensive signings. I expect them to spend at safety, and with the way the linebacker market is, that tier 3 or tier 4 guy that they will seemingly end up signing will probably cost them a little bit too. So I still think that they're going to sit there and fill the holes and from the fan perspective and everything to where they go into the draft. And why do I think that? Is because over the years we've seen George Payton. That's what he's done. When Sean Payton was with the Saints, that's what they've done. Most teams like to fill out the holes before they get to the draft, with one exception: quarterback. They do what they can there, but obviously that is not a position that, unless you have the guy, you don't have a guy. So that's a little bit different, but everywhere else, that's the mindset that most teams take.
Yeah, especially if you're picking 20 overall, you really can't control how the board falls to you. You need to be flexible and have options going. If you're picking in the top 3, I think you can be top 3, 5, you can be a little bit more laser focused, like with where the Browns are right now. I guess it's harder for the Browns. All 3 of the top teams don't have quarterbacks, so it's a little bit harder. But like the Titans, right? They're sitting there at 1. They could take Cam Ward. They love him. Great. If not, trade back to 3 and get one of Hunter or Carter. You can be pretty laser focused there. But Denver picking at 20, is Lumlin going to be there? Is linebacker on the table with Jihad Campbell? Do you sign a safety day? Does that take a man of warrior off the field? Or are you going to play Penny front? They tried Penny really hard last season, the last 2 seasons, to play a little bit more Penny. If you had somebody like Amanda Warrior, does that change? Even if you sign, let's say, a Justin Reed, can you have that become 30% of your defensive snaps? There's a lot of different options there. So you just got to be flexible picking that far down. That's what good teams do. Let the talent fall to you. And keep stacking talent as well.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about filling your weakness. It's about adding the best player possible over the duration of that rookie contract. So easier said than done, right? There's obviously subjectivity to that. And that's my perspective, at least. Thank you, Troy. Glenn coming in here. Do we switch our focus to safety and free agent market after Holland as a preference? I think that when you're talking about a large contract being handed out, if there is going to be a large contract handed out, I think there's a chance. I'd be skeptical of doing it, but I think there's a chance, now that we had the report out there that the Broncos were interested in Aaron Jones, maybe they pivot to a larger contract, quote, not great, but larger, to Najee Harris or Rico Dowdle. Those are, I think, the bigger two names available. I wouldn't be for it. I'd rather use 2 picks on running backs in the draft, or even like trade up for a guy than, pay a running back like that. But it depends on what the market is. I also wouldn't sleep on Evan Ingram potentially as well, getting a decent, fine-ish contract. Heck, we haven't even mentioned him yet. I think Denver will be way outspent on this one, but Chris Godwin's still out there, and he's essentially what I think Emeka Egbuka is going to be. Well, you can get Emeka Egbuka before the draft and Chris Godwin, so we'll see. But safety is definitely the most probable bigger contract for the Broncos, I think, right now.
Yeah, I mean, I still think just because of the way the linebacker market is, they'll still have to spend on a little bit to get there. Will it be, 10 plus million on an average per year basis? That I don't know. But I mean, if they're looking at Dre Greenlaw, they might have to. For a 1-year contract with him coming off the Achilles, that might be a risk that they view worth taking. Mm-hmm. But safety, that is one where I fully expect them to pivot to. There's been a lot linking him Cameron Bynum, and there's a lot going around this morning of Cameron Bynum looking for a significant contract. Along with Mulrig and Holland, and I'm not sure I would do that. I mean, I think it was on this show a couple weeks ago that I talked about Cameron Bynum and what I would look at giving him. Seems like he's going to exceed that, and it's just one of those things of like we have our value of these players based off what we see and everything, and then NFL teams obviously have different ones. The way they look at things is a little bit different. So, yeah, I mean, I expect them to spend at safety. I expect them to still have to spend at linebacker just because of the way market has gone. And yeah, I mean, it's just a slight pivot. They wanted Zach Bond. Well, he resigned. They had a pivot. Word started coming out that they wanted Nick Bolton or Jamie Sherwood. Well, both those got locked up pretty quickly. So forces you to change things, forces your plans. It's why you can't ever have like one set in stone plan and have to be fluid.
Absolutely. Kathy comes in across the pond in Deutschland. She says, "Good morning, all. Don't ever change Eric. Coffee is nasty." Kathy, I thought we were friends. I mean, I guess that's more for me. So I'm not going to fight you on it, but I love my coffee. My go-go juice makes me happy. Also, when you have a sore throat, and you don't sleep very well because your kid has been up. I don't know if I told you this, Eric, but kid woke up at 3:00 today, and eventually I came down for the show with Scott, and I'm like, told my wife, he's 14 months now. He's going to be in the crib and he's going to get himself down because it's been 2 hours and I've been up. So God bless you, Mills. I love you, but I need my go-go juice today. Appreciate you so much, Kathy. And Coach Chris, saw you were gone last week. Glad you're here this week. Fun stuff's happening this week. And also Coach Chris is, always coming in with the support on these morning shows. I don't know what time zone you're in, Chris, or where you're at. I always love the Big Lebowski, the dude pictures coming in here too. An all-time great film there. So my orchestra director was obsessed with it, an older guy, but loved the Big Lebowski, and he'd quote it all the time during rehearsals. So very near and dear to my heart. Dr. Culver is one of my favorite all-time professors. Says, "Good morning, Broncos country. Missed you last week. Traveling, was going through withdrawals, not watching the show. We were going through withdrawals without you, Coach. So appreciate you." He says, "A lot of perceived targets are resigning, are going elsewhere with huge contracts. Free agency is crazy this season." At some point, Eric, I think I sent it to you, and it kind of felt like you had the in Pokemon where you walk in front of a trainer and the exclamation point comes up. Yeah. I feel like when I mentioned this to you, I felt that across the internet to you. Like, Denver should trade back and get more picks, not just to, fill out the roster a little bit more, but get future picks, because with where free agency is going, I'd rather be doing what the Bears are doing this offseason, trading day 3 picks and eating contracts for plug and play good players rather than pay some of these guys the contracts they're getting. So trading down and getting more picks gives you even more leverage and ability to fill out the roster with veterans. John Franklin Myers comes to mind. So more chips, more reason to trade back. It's just kind of where the market's at right now. I'm going to see if it's a one-off with this offseason in free agency or if it's a trend going forward. But this year, poop free agency market, and it's been nuts with everybody signing everybody up.
Yeah, I mean, and part of why it feels like that way this year is because the free agent group wasn't viewed as overly strong even before all these resignings. And then the draft wasn't viewed that great. There's a lot of talk that, hey, instead of like 10 to 20 or 15 to 20 first round picks, we have maybe 10 at most. And then in overall, it's instead of, having a board of like 100 players that we have draftable grades on, we have 60 to 70. So it seems like they're willing to do that. And I'm with you. I want to see if this is a trend going forward with this, or if it is just a reflection of how they viewed the free agent market, how they viewed the draft. Because, I mean, adding on to that, you trade those guys, you trade those picks you trade down for additional picks in the future. You trade those picks for veterans on like the last year of the deal. Those veterans can then go out and be in play for a compensatory pick. You can also add to that by signing 1 year more risky deals, like 1 year prove it deals, to continue to play the compensatory pick. And it just fully embraced the loop that can create for you of constantly having picks in. And we've seen a couple teams like toy with that idea over the last couple of years, but not consistently enough to where it's like it's trend setting or it's going to be a lasting thing. But it is a thought that I absolutely enjoy to toy with and in my mind, and would love to see a team like fully embrace and do, just to see how it works. Broncos got good results with their little bit of toying with that with last year with John Franklin Myers. But one team that has been a little bit more consistent with it would be a team like the Eagles and Rams. And they both have Super Bowls in the last few years to kind of reflect that. So it's an interesting thought, and I'd be really curious to see if it's a trend going forward, or again, if it's just reflective of the current market.
And the baseline of all of those theories and getting away with that is you have to hit above average in the draft. And that's still the lifeblood of your team building, draft and develop. It can't be all supplemented through free agency or trading for veterans. The only way you have a healthy enough cap to do that and roster is to be drafting and hitting and developing cost controlled players through the draft. So that's still the baseline of everything, the lifeblood of building a team long term. I know we've got to wrap up here soon, Eric. Appreciate everyone coming in. I don't know how much my throat can handle. That's what she said. Pause, whatever, Tyler, whatever. We'll leave it at that. But who are your top guys today that you're watching for? I saw a comment in here saying top 3 guys. We talked about the safeties. I'm not there's a lot of teams, bad teams with money to spend in a bad market. So we could see some insane overpays today, looking at the Panthers, looking at the Patriots. But I know Dre Greenlaw's out there. He scares me. I would be super interested in giving him a 1-year deal for a good chunk of cap and playing that comp pick game going forward or whatever with him. And maybe even signing guys like, Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, Cortland Sutton, lower their cap hit this season and use some of that savings to pay Greenlaw all on that 1-year front while doing that. But is there anybody else? I mean, we talked about the safeties. We were looking at Johnson from the Saints as well. Who's out there that piques your interest?
I mean, it was Poona Ford. He was the one free agent that I was all about, but with DJ Jones, I think that's kind of crossed off. But yeah, I'm with you. It's the safeties. I'm really curious what they're going to get and how things go there. And Dre Greenlaw, because another thing with him too is you can sign him for like 1 year, like say $8 million guaranteed, and then an extra $2 or $3 million in bonuses. He only played 34 snaps last year, so all of his bonuses, all of his incentives would be considered unlikely to be earned. And what that means is they wouldn't count against the salary cap this year. And it's a way to kind of, skirt that 1-year deal to spread out the cap hit over multiple years. So briefly, when you give incentives, they are viewed either likely to be earned or unlikely to be earned. If they're likely to be earned, they count against the salary cap this year. But if they aren't met, then you get the break of it on the next year. If they're unlikely to be earned, they don't count against the salary cap until year 2 if they hit those bonuses. So you can have a snap count bonus there and all that with Dre Greenlaw, since he only played 34 snaps. It's going to be unlikely to be earned. Even though he's healthy, it's all based off of what they did last year. So that's a way they can kind of skirt that of like, hey, we're going to pay you, we're going to give you a chance to earn 10, $11 million, but we're only going to pay you $8 million, and then you can earn the extra of it and bonuses that we don't have to worry about on the salary cap until next year. So that is one way they can kind of skirt it. And I'm kind of curious if that's a deal that he ends up taking, because for the type of player that he is, the Achilles tear is not a good injury for him and is questionable for how well he will be when he returned. When he returns, especially having suffered a setback in his recovery for it. He came in, started for the San Francisco 49ers, started a second game, got hurt like 4 or 5 snaps into that second game. Re-aggravated it, and then was out for the rest of the season. So very curious to see how Greenlaw, his market plays out.
And I have two curious names, just kind of under the radar that I'm keeping an eye on for the linebackers specifically. Right now, we know the linebacker market is.
We got breaking news. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
you mentioned him. Evan Ingram is signing with the Denver Broncos.
Holy cow! I guess we have to go.
Visiting today. Sorry, I misread the thing. It's only a visit. Apologies.
You son of a gun.
I misread it.
All right, sorry. Well, I am going to send that off to Chad and Zach here just so they can get on that. But not surprising. I mean, we started off the show with what are the Broncos looking at as far as big signings could be. And I thought, Evan Ingram makes some sense. Denver wants to play that. I almost said phony, but pseudo 11-12 personnel. And Evan Ingram's kind of blurs the line. My issue with Evan Ingram is A, health. B, he's also not a good enough blocker that he's going to dictate coverage. Right. So that's like a concern for me. I think the chat's really enjoying things here with you doing that. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about it a little more, I just wanted to get my point out here real quick. 2 under the radar linebackers that would interest me for the Broncos. Willie Gay Jr. He had a good season last season. I think you can get him for off the bargain bin. And some of those linebackers these last few seasons, it's not been the bigger contract guys. It's been the bargain bin ones. And somebody who really former highly rated recruit, drafted really high, and has not had a good season, but finally had a good season last season. His 7th year in the league, by far his best season of his career. Took over starting snaps about halfway through the season and had a good year. Devin Bush for the Browns actually was pretty good last season for the Browns. I don't think it would take a lot of money to bring him in here compared to what the linebacker market is doing. I think that's a low cost, low risk move. And obviously we know that he has the athletic baseline. It's just always was the processing ability of the linebacker. But, now that he's this far in, you're talking about a scheme that's, a lot of man coverage out there as well with the Saints and their aggressiveness. So those are 2 names that stick out to me. I want to give a shout out to ZanB21. I don't want to give out his real name, but he's one who said, go back and check out Devin Bush. And I'm like, under the radar, kind of an interesting name to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of Willie Gay. I haven't been a fan of him since coming into the NFL, and it's for reasons I don't really want to get into. It's all off the field stuff. But Devin Bush, I'm with you. He's one that's interesting to an extent. I'm not sure I would sign him with the idea of I'm going to give him a starting job, but I would definitely add him to the room as added competition for it, similar to what they did with with Cody Barton last year. I mean, they didn't sign him with the
Cody Barton pivot.
Yeah, exactly. That Cody Barton type signing. And as for Evan Ingram, what's rough with him is that he's not quite. I don't want to say he's not quite the caliber of receiver, but he's not that caliber of player to play that big slot full time either, which really makes him like a bit of an issue. I mean, he had success with the Giants early on doing that, but over the years with the Jaguars, as age and injuries took their toll on him, he kind of lost a little bit that gave him that oomph to be able to do it. But he's also, again, as you said, he's not that blocker in line. It makes sense, though, if they want that receiving tight end to bring him in for a visit, see how he's doing, see how his health, and just, start that little bit of a conversation there about what is he looking for in a contract. And it could be one of those situations where they may be willing, again, we talked about it with safety and everything, maybe pivoting off a linebacker and having to spend big at linebacker. Maybe some of that allotted funds there goes to being willing to pay a tight end for Evan Ingram. So it's interesting. And again, I do apologize for reading that incorrectly. Wasn't intentional, obviously. But clicked over Twitter, had it refresh, and saw just read signing instead of visiting. So again, apologize for that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So the other news here for the Broncos, they were the conflicting stuff back and forth, Eric, that we talked about, it seems like we came around. Denver was very interested in Michael Bolton. Gosh.
Nick Bolton.
Nick Bolton. Yeah, my name. Nick Bolton. He ends up going back to the Chiefs. There was, Mike Kliss putting out there, I don't know if they want the heavy-footed guy. Well, they're going for what they want, are going after what they can get there. Also, Sherwood back. So those are two guys that the Broncos, after they've been signed, reports come out that the Broncos were very interested in wanting both of them. So that's interesting. And then also the Broncos do bring back two players. Jarrett Stidham back to the Broncos. What is it, 2-year, $12 million, I believe was the number off the top of my head. They also are bringing back Fraboni, the long snapper, Pro Bowl alternate Fraboni, Michael Bolton. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. I know that's the Office Space joke there. But any relation to the pop singer? Maybe. Who knows? But those are the news yesterday of the Broncos. I'm not shocked about Stidham being back. I thought that was the sorry, guys, you got to give me a little bit of a benefit. I'm going to show you my feet here pretty soon for super chats with the hand, foot, mouth dots on it. But no, the Broncos bringing back Stidham. I'm not surprised at all. I thought maybe they would dabble in a little bit of maybe a Mac Jones or somebody else with a little bit more perceived upside, kind of like the Zach Wilson stuff. But Denver goes with Jarrett Stidham, known guy, helps the room. It makes sense. I'm curious if they'll go with just 2 quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks. Will they draft somebody who's the long shot kind of guy there? And then Zach Wilson. Sounds like the Titans are making some eyes at Zach Wilson potentially if they're not going at Cam Ward, potentially, fighting off with Will Levis if the Titans want to go with Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter instead.
Yeah, I mean, when listening to things going around about the free agent quarterbacks, thankfully, not for Denver whatsoever outside of where Zach Wilson might end up. It seems like there's a few teams that are eyeing quarterbacks that are looking his way as that, maybe that plan C or D option, like the Titans, as you mentioned, as a guy who can come in and compete with other guys that they have or bring in for a chance to start. And it seemed to be that's kind of what he was looking for, is that he's not set in being a backup just yet. He still wants to have a chance, and maybe that played in a role in them bringing back Jarrett Stidham. But from the way it seemed like Jarrett Stidham was always the option for the backup quarterback. Even going back to last year in training camp and preseason, it was very clear Jarrett Stidham was quarterback 2 behind Bo Nix once Bo Nix settled in as quarterback 1. So yeah, I mean, it's good. And I actually don't mind the signing. $6 million for a backup quarterback on an average per year basis is actually quite good. He has a good relationship built up with Bo Nix, which is what you want to keep. And with Davis Webb getting his promotion as well, getting into a lot of the staff changes that happened, Davis Webb becoming the passing game coordinator, they really keep that core of that room together, and that should help Bo Nix take that next step in his development.
Yeah, so crazy. I think the big disappointment with the Broncos right now, as we wrap up the show, is that the linebacker market went burr yesterday, as the Zoomers say. Absolutely insane with not only every single one essentially being snatched up, but also the amount of money they got. And we'll have some time to retrospectively look at that as well sometime this offseason, Eric. Is it the schemes of the league right now? Is it because of teams are absolutely dreadful at drafting linebackers? I mean, so you'd rather pay a guy for the known quality because your hit rate in the first round, I mean, if you go back 10 years, first round hit rate at linebacker is god awful. Yeah. So we'll see what happens here. Jeremy's really wanting us to do a mock. Let's do a quick mock. I got it. I got it in me. This is not going to be a lot of analysis in this one, Jeremy. It's just going to be 2 rounds because I got to get out of here because my throat is killing me. And if the little kid wakes up and I'm not upstairs soon to help my wife, she's going to be very mad at me because we've been up since 3:00 because for some reason he was looking at us trying to rock him back to sleep saying da 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 goo 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 goo. It's like, buddy, it's 3:30 a.m. Why are you doing this to me? I need sleep. But we're in here. I'm hoping Jeremy will sprinkle a super chat in here or something since we're doing this directly for him. No, I'm just giving you a hard time, Jeremy. 3 rounds. We're doing it. Let me pull it up here as I got it going.
I just got to say, while you're pulling that up, I don't miss the nights of having to wake up super early and all that for the little one. I mean, with my little one, it was a little bit different. She had a feeding tube on, and we had to feed her every so often, including through the night, and so that had to go off, and I had to go get in and fix it because at that time I wasn't working. So I don't miss it at all. And it gets to a point where you just relish your sleep a little bit more once they get a little bit older and start sleeping all the way through the night and getting to bed early.
Yeah. Well, he's mostly sleeps well, but my wife's been dealing with some sort of upper respiratory. I got hand, foot, and mouth from him. So luckily I get to sleep in or go back to sleep at some point today because I'm not allowed at work because I'm infectious. But appreciate Jeremy. We're going a little longer here. So we're on the clock here with pick 20. I do see Emeka Egbuka's available. Derek Harmon's made a resurgence, so good for him. Happy about that. Darius Alexander's all the way up here at 23. Walter Nolan available. You got Matthew Golden as well, and Marion Hampton. Colson Loveland. Let's just say for the sake of argument here, Eric, we're going to skip Colson Loveland. It's just too redundant. I think that'd be the move at this point, especially after he measured as big as he did. I'm still flabbergasted about how big he is for his movement skills. Even without the testing, that's rare. But we're here. What do you think?
I think I saw his name on there, Malachi Starks.
You want Malachi Starks at the top?
Yeah,
okay.
that's where I would go with how the board fell. I think for me, he's the best player available. Fits a position of need. I've really come around on Malachi Starks after going back and watching him. It's not like I was super low on him. I had him as like my 23rd ranked, somewhere around that range, ranked player. So he's moved up a little bit, and I still like him at this spot. You are unable to be heard.
Oh, here I am. Sorry, I muted because I was about to cough. But sorry about that. Grady Jarrett released. I better tell Scott. But yeah, we'll go with Malachi Starks. Linebackers off the board there. Pick 12 and 13. Is there any chance Carson Schwechsinger makes a rocket up the board there?
I mean, with the way the linebacker market has gone, and with the linebacker class not being super great, you could see teams reach a little bit for that linebacker position. So I wouldn't say he's off the table there. Do I think it's likely? No, I think that they would most likely want to trade down a little bit and try to get him later. But yeah, he's an option. Demetrius Knight, he's another one. I mean, linebackers are probably going to get pushed up a little bit again because of how insane the free agent market has been.
Yeah. All right, we're on the board here. You got Elijah Arroyo. I know you like him a lot. He's available. We got Shamar Turner, who I mocked the Broncos at 85. He's all the way up here at 46 rank. So the defensive line group is wild. But best available player here is Derek Harmon. I mean, I'd be shocked if he falls out of the first round. I think, I know that we really want offense for this team, but draft good players. Harmon's got the ability to play on rundowns, one technique. He can play 4-eye on other downs. He gives you a lot of versatility and some size and length that you just simply don't have on the defensive line right now.
Yeah, I mean, that versatility, it's just such a boost for the depth because of everywhere that he can play. The only other name there that really stood out to me was Demetrius Knight.
Yeah. I like Demetrius Knight, but give me Harmon there.
Yeah.
Okay, we're on the board here for the Broncos. We got Benjamin Morrison falling because of 2 hip surgeries. Mason Taylor, I don't think he'll be here at the end of the day, but we'll see. Chris Paul, we got linebacker there. We've gone 2 defenders. We better go with an offensive player here. Jalen Royals is available. Marcus Bowe. I'd be shocked if he fell down this far. He'll probably be featured in a mock of mine at some point. Maybe I can get away with him in the 3rd round with this. You got Devin Neal still available. I don't know if I mentioned Jalen Royals already. I think Mason Taylor's the play here for me.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, get that tight end. He's very reliable in all phases. So
Young,
boost the floor.
smooth player. Top 5%. Hey, that means I'm going to get a tax break for this one. God bless. But no, it's a great draft. I'd be over the moon with this. I know some Broncos fans would be absolutely peeing and emming because we went 2 defensive players there, but the board dictates direction at the end of the day. So that's what we did here with the Broncos. The one I'm not as, I think if I would have done this, Eric, I probably would have taken Emeka. I would have taken Colson Loveland at 20, probably. But after that, I might have leaned Emeka Egbuka just because I just can't see how he fails. You're going to get good ROI on that contract. But Loveland or Igbuka probably would have been direction gone, but we wanted something different. I don't think we've gone Starks, and this also might be the last chance we can go safety at pick 20 if Denver makes a big splash at safety in free agency. So there we are. 8:32. It's time for us to get out of here. Appreciate everybody. Jeremy, that was for you. It was for everybody. I know. It's all love. But any final thoughts, Eric? I saw the Grady Jarrett stuff. Big news on that one. Big day today. We'll see everything else that happens here. J.C. Horn getting a new contract, 4-year, $100 million extension. Good for him. The guy. Thank you, Panthers, for taking a cornerback right before the Broncos at pick 9, taking Horn instead of Patrick Surtain. God bless you. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting few days. Wednesday's going to be especially interesting when we get on the show in the morning, because at that point we'll have some of those signings leaked. And one thing that I'm always curious about are what are the deals? There's always like one or two every single year. What are the deals that get announced as happening that don't end up happening come Wednesday, that fall through for some reason? Another team comes in and takes them away, or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's a fall through over the negotiating of the guaranteed contracts. So, because the way that they get around legal tampering is they're not supposed to fully agree to a deal. So they always leave like a little bit of, maybe we'll give this or go this with guaranteed money. It's agreed, but not fully agreed. So they can sit there and, it's now free agent's now open. It's like, okay, we'll give you this as guaranteed. Let's sign the deal. That's the way they skirt the rule a little bit. And so it's always curious to see what falls through. And I'm excited for it. It's going to be a busy day. It's already a busy morning. It's already been a busy few days. So we'll see. Maybe we'll end up talking about having Denver signed Evan Ingram, which very well could happen sometime today with him visiting.
Yeah, and why would they bring Ingram to town? He had labrum surgery repair back in around Christmas time. So that takes 3 to 6 months to get back to full strength, and we're only 2.5 months out. So there's going to obviously be a physical assessment with him at the end. So I wish we had a little bit more time to talk about the Ingram stuff, but alas, I just heard the dog come down the stairs. That means it's time for me to be back on the clock. So appreciate everyone coming in here, joining us today. You all are great. I want to give a shout out to all of our super chat givers today. Jason Bonney, Troy Boer, Kathy Schmidt, Coach Chris. I know Michael Ronquillo was in there as well. You guys are all fantastic. Make sure you're following Eric on Twitter. Eric's at Erick Trickel. I'm at Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, we're over at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. Make sure you follow that ticker there underneath. Subscribe to us over on YouTube, like and share, and check out Underdog Fantasy and use our code MHuddle as well. You use that helps us a lot. So we'd appreciate that. We will see you guys again. I'll see you guys again tomorrow evening, assuming I don't have some new daycare viral illness. But we're getting by. Good to see you, Eric, and off to a exciting off season for sure. So appreciate everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Have a good Monday. Choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.